Do you want to start us off this time? Because I started us off last time.
Oh, sure.
All right. Well, mics are getting ready to go on in just one moment.
All right.
All right. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Oh, I'm sorry that the music was going to start. Okay. Hi.
Hold on. We'll restart that.
Okay, thank you.
You're right. I forgot that. I forgot you guys did get a song.
That
Hold
was
on.
hilarious. We should start every show like that.
Oh my God. Don't I get a song?
Oh, no, I'm on. That's the music.
Hold on. This is
Smoking that reefer. She is out there. Oh, my God. I would like everybody to know that was our first 2 minutes of show. Which I was just staring blankly at the beginning.
I know, we're really looking intoxicated. I have to find that picture. In the meantime, I should be finding a picture of Barney Frank.
Yeah.
You had-
Oh my gosh.
it was so disrespectful.
What, with the Nibblegate? Yeah.
Nipples protruding on the Sunday floor. His commas perfectly fine. in the picture. Oh, Barney Frank is a
It's
mess.
weird though. I watched Batman Begins.
Did you guys do funky or okay?
Funky. And Batman Begins, I forget the woman's lead there, but just all the time. Just why? That is so unnecessary.
That's the way they do in movies.
Oh,
so much
God.
unnecessary. It's fun.
Sorry. Just let me know when you guys are ready for mics.
Oh, you can start.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, hi, everybody, and welcome to Right on 14th. I am Christina Caramo.
And I'm Mike Parr.
So, we have a lot of interesting things to run down. First of all, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? Are you staying warm?
I am.
It's going to be 50 tomorrow.
That's good. And I managed to slip only 3 times today.
Good, good,
Yes,
good.
And I caught myself.
You guys might not know it, but we're starting a weather channel here. We're switching from Right on 14th to Right on Cumulus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of small
That's not
talk.
happening. Not happening.
Okay, so we have a lot of really interesting topics going on right now. So the first thing we're going to talk about are the 2018 elections, which is going to be a running theme we're going to be talking about because, of course, we're into politics, so elections is like what we live for. So in our district, it's been noted that we have a Democrat sitting in the seat, Brenda Lawrence. But right now, for the Senate election, there is Debbie Stabenow and Gary Peters. Now, Debbie Stabenow's seat is up for grabs. So this is going to be an interesting election. So what do you say, Mike?
I think it's going to be a really interesting race, right? And I thought it was especially interesting that Debbie has so much money. I was doing a little bit of research beforehand, and she's got something like $6 million just in receipts and $7 million cash on hand. And everybody says, money's going to win politics, and if it does, then Debbie is way out front so far. Especially all of our Republican colleagues. Unfortunately, they've only got a couple $100,000 on hand, each of them respectively. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into who they are and what they're all about later. But I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
It is because a lot of times when people vote, unfortunately, most people do not look at policies. A lot of people don't pay attention closely. They just look at name recognition.
Yep.
Whose name and face have I seen the most? I realized that for the 2004 presidential election, it was my very first time voting. I was 19 years old, and I was waiting in line to vote, and I heard a guy turn around and say, which one is the Republican and which one was the Democrat?
No way.
Is the Democrat? Yes. And the people in line was like, Kerry is the Democrat. And he was like, okay, that's the one I'm going to vote for. And I'm like, what? I'm like, so you didn't think to research and find out before you got to the polls? So it just really hit me how clueless people are. So with that $7 million on hand, she can run a lot of smear campaigns.
Yep.
And her face is going to be blasted everywhere. And then people are like, oh, I saw her face, so that's what I'm going to vote for.
Exactly. Which is terrible, right? So obviously we need to do a better job raising funds for conservative candidates to get the message out. And that's why we're here.
And also the thing about it is it's really interesting. A lot of, for the Democratic politicians, because of globalism, they have a lot of international support.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I believe for Hillary Clinton's campaign, George Soros paid almost $1 billion.
Did he?
I heard. Yes, don't quote me on that, but it was an extremely high number. It was definitely in the 9 digits.
Really?
Yes.
No, I didn't realize
He
that.
paid for her campaign. So a lot of these campaigns, they have a lot of international support because of the globalist vision, which, one of the things that Republicans talk about a lot is national sovereignty, which is really, really important. So when we talk about we don't want globalism, it's not that we want to be isolationist. We just want to be a sovereign nation who peacefully coexists with other sovereign nations. That's our entire point. But when you have foreign actors investing into American elections, I think that, I'm not saying that he has invested in Debbie Stabenow election, but I'm just saying that that may be possibility. I don't know. But moving right along, so for that seat, for Debbie Stabenow's seat that she's sitting in, that is up for grabs. We have several people. One, Kid Rock, who talked about running, but what happened with that?
I don't think he's running anymore, despite the T-shirts that he made and the website that he had up. It sounds like the answer's no. Are you on the same page here?
Yeah. It seems that he's not running. So, I'm not to say he would have been a bad senator, but I don't know. If he, who knows? But nevertheless, so we're going to go over the people who are going to be running. There are 3 prominent names, shall I say, that we're very aware of. Now, it was another individual. We're not going to mention his name, not only because we're not sure if he's really running or what's going on. So the 3 people right now that we know are running are Bob Carr, John James, and Sandy Pensler. So it's really important for voters to be informed. And a lot of times people aren't really interested in these things, but you must remember who is in power definitely affects your life, so you need to care. So the first person is Bob Carr. He's from Mackinac Island, and he has a very interesting story. And so I think a lot of times the person's background, of course, can sometimes make them more or less qualified to handle certain things. So Sandy grew up in foster care. Yes, he grew up in foster care, and he graduated from a boarding school. And the interesting part about him, his mother was a drug addict.
Really?
His mother was a drug addict. And so if you go down and looking at his issues, he's going to have a very unique perspective dealing with that. The foster care system, that's a whole nother issue within itself. So definitely a lot of children who come from homes where they're foster children, where they've been shuffled around, because he grew up in 22 foster homes over the course of his childhood.
No, that's crazy. So does that make it part of his core agenda, is to maybe fix the system, or maybe get money to that system somehow?
Well, he talks about community development. If you read his website, he doesn't have a specific job title. The other candidates, they have very specific job titles where he has worked on several projects. So it appears he does, like he said, on boards for certain things or different committees for different things. So that gives him kind of a unique perspective. Like he said that his life work was community development. And so that's basically he lists himself as a community developer and a historic preservationist.
Well, that could mean anything, right? At this point, I donate money to this project. I donate money to this project. So I wonder, is he just a rich guy that donates a bunch of money to things and now decided it's time to run for office?
Well, with him, the way it appears, he has just worked in several capacities. Like he's worked at different homes and shelters. He's just done a lot of different stuff.
That's cool.
So as a person of a jack of all trades type of person, I can identify with that. So, and he again, with his background, he could definitely resonate with a lot of kids who grow up in those homes, because many times broken adults were broken children.
Right.
So if we can help some of these people, or fix them, if you will, while they're in the educational system, we can produce more healthy adults. So he has a bachelor's in communications and political science. He worked for the Office of Economic Opportunity on Capitol Hill for a Republican congressman. So that experience will help him. So he's a pilot. So he wants to improve transportation and infrastructure, which we know, especially living in Michigan, our roads are atrocious. I was getting on a freeway, which I know we can't name names, but I felt like, oh my God, I'm going to blow a tire. So that's one thing. Also, jobs, of course, is an encouraging businesses to hire additional employees. He didn't give a lot of specifics, just general things that he want to work on. So I'm sure he has more detailed plans, because the deadline, people still can run. If somebody wants to hop into the race, there's still time. So drug abuse, of course, is a part of it. And as previously mentioned, his personal experience will definitely give him a good, especially having a parent who overdosed, would definitely give a person a good sense of how to solve this issue. He also talked about community securities and visas. So he was mentioning that giving visas, and now he didn't say specifically to whom. I don't know if it's to employ transients or migrant workers for the summer seasons because, for example, like Mackinac Island is seasonal. So after the summer season is over with, tourism goes down, and it's not a lot of people who live there anyway, so they need additional workers just for the summer season. So I'm not sure how he wants to handle that. Agriculture and healthcare and educational reform. But again, he didn't list a lot of specifics. So, Mike, who's the next person we have up running?
Next up is John James, and he seems to be your all-American hero. He's West Point graduate, Ranger, which is fantastic and amazing, right? We always like to have people that have been in the service actually in government. That's part of grassroots, right? Which is really a great thing that both the left and the right can agree on. He's got an MBA, obviously a very smart individual also, and then a master's in supply chain management. And then he's got a lot of conservative tenets that we really like. So he's pro-life, he's pro-Second Amendment, he's pro-business, and he's a very all-around conservative guy. So pretty fantastic as far as candidates go. And then he's also got a lot of people that are supporting him, right? So Senator Marco Rubio has endorsed him. And then the U.S. Congressman from Michigan's 8th, Mike Bishop, also endorsed. So he's got a great list of accomplishments. He's got a lot of things going for him. I haven't seen any polls, though, yet, right? So maybe he's going to be polling really well.
Yeah, I think he probably will poll really well. And also, he as the president of his family company, which he tripled their revenue. And so he's created jobs in Michigan. And he also got an endorsement from Robert O'Neill, who was on the SEAL team who killed Osama bin Laden.
Okay.
So he has some really good endorsements.
I'll say.
So a lot of specifics on policy.
Yeah.
Haven't heard yet. More generic. Again, a lot of times in campaigns you don't hear specifics, but he seems to be very, very conservative.
Well, especially this early on, I feel like a lot of people are less inclined to put things up on their website that says, this is exactly where I'm at and this is how I feel about things before they can kind of feel out the field to feel like where they should be on certain issues.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Also because people steal your ideas.
Yes, they do. Definitely. Oh, I want to make this jobs campaign like this, X, Y, Z, and we're going to put money into it. And people are like, oh, that's a good idea. We're going to do that too. So I've recently come to the opinion, right, that it is okay for candidates to kind of switch sides and be wishy-washy on some of these topics. Because that's the whole point of a representative democracy, right, is that they are supposed to represent the will of the people. Part of me is like, no, if you have fundamental tenets of who you are as a person, of your character, then you should just stick to those regardless. And then the other half of me is like, no, you're there to represent the people. That's what you should be doing while you're in office. So, yeah.
Actually, Mike, you have a really, really good point about that simply because sometimes information will make a person change their mind.
Right.
Because sometimes when you're in the position of a candidate, your information is very limited.
Oh, yeah.
But as the election proceeds, as things happen, and then say you get elected, then you're privy to more information, then that definitely is going to change your opinion on certain things. So I think sometimes us as the general public do need to cut politicians a little bit of slack
Yes.
on that simply because some information we simply do not have.
Definitely. So that was Bob Carr and John James. Last up is Sandy. Take us away.
Okay, so Sandy Pensler, he's born and raised on the west side of Detroit, but he graduated from University of Liggett High School in Grosse Pointe, where he lives now. So he's obviously very smart, which all of the candidates are, of course, very, very smart, but this is very impressive. He graduated from Yale with a BA in chemical engineering and economics and a master's in economics in 4 years. In 4 years. That is very, very impressive. Then he, after that, he sold his company. He started a company, like an importing company.
Okay.
Sold that. Then he went to law school and graduated from Harvard in 1982. So he has a lot of, and on his website, the interesting part, he had a lot more specifics, which we talked about. Because I remember at one of our meetings, we had somebody come speak for, I'm not going to say, but nevertheless, I remember them mentioning that they didn't say a lot about their specifics because they didn't want people to steal their ideas. However, Sandy Pensler did put down a whole lot of specifics. So nevertheless, he worked for Judge Patrick Higginbotham as a clerk. He started his own company. He's worked as a financial advisor for like TJX, General Electric, Chrysler, Sprint, Scholastic, Time Warner, all types of companies. So his issue, so now, as I mentioned, he has a company called Pensler Capital, where he owns and operates several other companies under that one. So his issues he have listed are job creation, which, of course, he has lots of experience with that. Also, he wants to negotiate better trade deals that would incentivize companies to keep good jobs in Michigan. And that's the thing where people fail to understand. Like with the tax plan that was recently passed in December, when that corporate tax rate is so high, companies do not want to do business in that area. And guys, as we mentioned in a previous show, none of us work for poor people. None of us do.
Everybody works for a company, and if you raise the taxes on companies, they're going to have less money to do things like invest in workers, infrastructure, or they're just going to leave the United States altogether, right? And that's the reason that Ireland is such a famous tax haven, because who is it? I think Apple's there, aren't they?
I'm not sure.
There's a bunch of big tech companies that are in Ireland just because, it's cheap.
Yeah, and so that is a huge problem, and a lot of times people feel like companies shouldn't do that. And what happens is it's not so much, and it's like, as we kind of talked about before, a lot of times with socialism or the socialistic policies, like let's stick it to the rich guys. Okay, well, first of all, because maybe if I'm unhappy about my situation, I shouldn't want you just to do worse. So I don't know if it's to make me feel better, but that's beside the point. A lot of these people have a team of attorneys and tax professionals who will help them keep their money. Again, it just screws over the mom and pops, the smaller businesses, okay? It's not just the 1%. Everybody, 99% of us get screwed over. So why would you screw over 99% of people just to stick it to 1%? Makes no sense. At any rate, so he wants to negotiate better trade deals, educational reform through competitive choice education. So part of us being Republicans, we definitely believe competition is healthy, which if you notice human nature, competition is healthy. We are all competitive to a certain extent. It just depends on the person, how competitive you are, and depending on the situation, how competitive you will be. But competition definitely breeds better results. So when there's, as the cookie example I've used on air before, and I tell my students all the time, okay, once you have competition, better prices, better product. Just common sense. If I know I got options, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Just that simple. I saw reform entitlements, which is really important. And then one of the things people need to realize about our desire to reform entitlements isn't because we don't care about people who are economically struggling. It's because you don't want to incentivize dependency.
I think that's a key tenet of the Republican platform, right? Is don't give people money to do nothing if they're capable of doing something. And I think that's the important caveat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Like he said, if they can. The people who are like, you have, say, for example, people who are born with special needs. If you got somebody who was born on Down syndrome, I don't expect society to be like, well, sink or swim. Of course.
Absolutely.
I feel as a society, we have a moral obligation to help that person because that's a member of our tribe who needs help. But a lot of people, this simply isn't the case. I know people that are completely gaming the system. Like I remember when I was in college, I knew people who had a bridge card who were childless. Why does a person who is childless have any type of government assistance? If you are an able-bodied adult, I'm not talking about, again, a person with Down syndrome or you got your legs cut off or something like that. If you're not physically disabled and or mentally, truly mentally disabled, not just I got problems,
Absolutely.
Why are you getting our tax dollars? So at any rate, we must incentivize people doing better. Me personally, I would like to see some type of welfare reform that incentivize work. And also, I think that people need to learn life skills.
Definitely.
I think that would be excellent. That's a little drop. So, show Christina some love for saying that. But I think there should be some type of life skills course people have to take. That way to kind of break them out that cycle. Anyway, we move on. He talks about illegal immigration.
Which is going to be the main topic for today. We're going to be talking on illegal immigration later in the show.
Mm-hmm. And then he talks about protecting the Great Lakes, which are really important. That's one of Michigan's most prized resources. So a lot of you guys running out to California,
we've got the water. This is where you want to be.
Exactly. So that, and also he wants to create urban parks, which would be really, really nice. He's pro-life, which is huge to all Republicans, but I know if Mike and myself are that's a huge issue for us. And he's pro-Second Amendment and fight for a large defense and transportation projects to come to Michigan, which jobs, and good paying jobs. So it's, from my understanding, the deadline to submit or to get in the race is April 24th.
So I can still run.
You should. And I could be your campaign manager.
That'd be great. Or you can still run. Anybody can still run at this point. Sign up. Go be a senator. It'll be a blast.
You would not want me to be a politician.
No, you don't think so? You'd be good at this.
I think I would just say all the wrong things. I would say all the wrong things that everybody said. She said what? Go, well, too bad I did.
Well, we can't be politicians anymore because now we've had this show, right? And people are going to dig this up, and this is going to be the dirt. Oh, you said once upon a time that people with Down syndrome. Okay, well, I guess we can't be politicians anymore. So be it.
Yeah. Okay. So before our This Week in Trump segment, we're going to keep it a little short, simply because we have so many interesting things to talk about. And what's been buzzing in the news right now is this Michael Wolff book. And you guys know I laugh so much, so I'm trying to keep it together.
Well, there's so many good things to say about this book.
Okay. First of all, not even the book. What is so funny to us are the fake news awards.
So in case you haven't heard about this, Trump is going to be coming out on the 17th, so Wednesday next week, with the Fake News Awards. And details are short at this point, but it sounds like Trump is going to be coming and publicizing to the nation the best, worst news broadcasts. And you should see the picture. We're going to have to post it up onto our Facebook page because he's got all the best news sites up there that lean all different directions. Oh, it's fantastic.
So the exact tweet, now he has a video on Facebook with graphics and everything, but the tweet says, the Fake News Awards, comma, those going to the most corrupt and biased of the mainstream media, comma, will be presented to the loser.
It's going to be straight gold, right? Just purely from an entertainment standpoint, this is going to be amazing.
Okay, and the funny part is it's going to the losers.
Yeah.
Not
the winners, but the losers. Yeah. You knew that was going to be good, right?
So they're going to the losers on Wednesday, January 17th, rather than this coming Monday. The interest in it and importance of these awards is far greater than anyone could have anticipated. Yeah, the funny part is, yes, he has some funny names like Steve Bannon, Sloppy Steve, Dianne Feinstein, Sneaky Dianne Feinstein.
Capitalized S, Sneaky, by the way. That's the important part here. Apparently, this is her new name, Sneaky Dianne Feinstein.
And so, the funny part is that sometimes, the things he does, some people, it drives him nuts. And some people, like me, I think it's just pure comedy. But the important part is for people who aren't his supporters or Democrats understand, this is wonderful for us Republicans. Under the Bush administration, one of the most frustrating things was he did not defend himself. For me and a lot of other conservatives, we were like, oh, my God, will you defend yourself? And that's not a criticism of him. That was just his style.
Yeah.
He just kind of was like, you know what? I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to keep governing the nation, whatever. And I respect that. But for some of us, we're kind of like, even though sometimes it can feel like, wow, I can't believe he said that. But the things that President Trump does is almost like a breath of fresh air. It's like, finally, a Republican who will stand up for themselves. Because, one of the things that we talked about, and Mike always says, is like, we're good people. Like, Republicans care about people. And we get labeled. I mean, once you say you're Republican, okay, you're racist, homophobe, xenophobe, Islamophobe, transphobe. You might throw arachnophobia in there as well, right? We have all these phobias. We hate everybody.
Yep.
And for me, as a Black Republican, I hate myself. I hate myself. I'm going through an identity crisis.
And as a woman, don't forget.
As a woman, I
women.
hate myself.
Yep. And women's rights, they're the worst.
I hate myself just because I don't believe in abortion, because I believe that little child is life. That means I hate myself as a woman. And the funny part about that is that liberals try to say, we don't want to define women by their sexuality, but you're actually doing that by saying that the only issue I should care about is abortion, saying the only issue I should care about revolves around sex, which is like not the most important part of a person's life. There's so many other things.
Absolutely.
So I digress because I feel a tangent coming on.
No, it's good. This is a good tangent.
But that is why, even though it may seem a little silly or childish sometimes when he does these things, but we love it because it's like finally somebody sticking up for us. Finally somebody saying anything, because the media is so dishonest. And we're not going to be intellectually dishonest and say there aren't some right-leaning platforms, because there totally are, you know. But it's like just complete lies, never tell good things he does. It's ridiculous. So it's, I can't wait. I'm going to have snacks in my hand.
It's going to be great. We'll all watch it together. So we're definitely going to post it up on the Right on 14th Facebook page and on the Twitter and on the Instagram. So feel free to come by our page, like us. Let's be friends. So come by, check us out. And then let us know. What do you think? Are you guys going to watch the show? Are you guys going to be interested? Or then what's your favorite candidate for the senator race? Just whatever you got to say, come by. Come see our page. Leave us a note.
And share what snacks you'll be eating.
Yes, definitely. I'm going with Cheetos. Cheetos are going to be my Yeah.
Cheetos are good with Doritos and pretzels. But anyway.
All right. Next up on the list is our free speech report here. So last week we got talking real briefly about the ACLU, and I know we try and make a point not to say a lot of names here, but I actually wanted to come to the defense of the ACLU because I know, especially on the right, it gets a lot of bad press, right? Because they are a organization that fights a lot for some seemingly very ridiculous things. They are known for defending all sorts of what's the kind of speech that like hate speech and
hate
stuff.
speech.
Yeah.
Oh, hate speech.
Yep, they're
you know.
infamous for that, right? But I want to come to their defense and say they also do a lot of things for the right, and they don't get a lot of publicity for this, which I think is really interesting. That people just like to hate them and just like to think that they're left leaning. But for example, they defended Milo Yiannopoulos the other day when he was trying to speak at the UC Berkeley, and UC Berkeley essentially prevented him from coming. Tried everything they could to get him not to come, especially the students, right? Because as you guys know, University of California, Berkeley is a huge haven for liberals, and anything that's right-leaning, they protest. It's really funny that they're all for freedom of speech and freedom to like express yourself and say whatever you want, unless it's right-leaning, and then get the heck off my campus. It's like, okay, well, that's crazy. And what happened is the ACLU came in and backed him up on this. And so there's this whole laundry list of things, right, that the ACLU has done. They defended a couple of citizens in the state of Texas for putting a Confederate flag on, or trying to put the Confederate flag onto the license plate of the state of Texas, which is definitely not something you would expect from them. They sided with the KKK when the KKK wanted to adopt a highway. The state said, no, you can't adopt this highway. Like, that's a terrible thing for you to do. And I'm not saying I agree with the KKK in any way, shape, and form, but if they want to do something good, like adopt a highway and clean it up, then good for them, I guess, you know? And then Chick-fil-A, this was really good, right? So the owner of Chick-fil-A came out and said, marriage is between one man and one woman, period, straightforward. And the cities of Boston and Chicago were like, oh, well, we don't really agree with that, so we're going to kick your restaurant out of our cities. And everybody said, no, that's absolutely crazy, right? And I love this quote from the ACLU rep from Massachusetts here. I guess it was the director, and her name is Carol Rose, and she said, everyone has a right to spout off on same-sex marriage and equal rights. And she went on to say, and those who share his views, oh gosh, I missed it, even if their views are bigoted. It's like, that's great, right? Like, the left can say what they want and the right can say what they want, and it may seem bigoted from the other point of view, whether you're on the left or whether you're on the right, the other person's perspective may seem bigoted, but you're allowed to say whatever the heck you want. And I think that's the beautiful part about the ACLU is whatever you want to say, you can say it, as long as you're not legitimately threatening somebody or intending to hurt someone, right? That's a whole nother topic. We're not even going to touch that. But if you want to say that marriage is between a man and a woman, then good for you. You shouldn't be put out because of that, and negative things shouldn't happen to you because of that. So I don't know. I just wanted to do a little plug here because I know they get a lot of hate from the right, and I think it's undeserved. So
You know how I feel about these. But I will say, like, the thing with, and I think, you know, some of it is interesting, Mike, because some of these things I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that. Some of these things I did not know until you put them in the show notes. So I will admit to that. Like, I did not know they defended Milo, because if you see the footage from the UC Berkeley thing, I mean, the whole Antifa, it's just so insane. They claim to be anti-fascist, but they go and beat up people who think differently from them. And we talked about the whole thing with Milo, what they were saying about him, which is just hilarious because of it just didn't add up to him. And so even though groups that we know do horrible things, they do have a right to free speech. And like when the woman came to our class, she tried to equate the fact, well, we defended the KKK, so NAMBLA, it's all one and the same. But there's a difference. I know it's going to sound odd, but there's human beings have always, and to a certain extent, can be very tribal. And so sometimes when we give into our tribalism, we can be very cruel and horrible to each other. I mean, throughout history, wars have always been this group versus that group. So that is an ugly aspect of humanity. However, to me, hating people who are not from your tribe and wanting to rape children, that to me was just like, you cannot compare the two.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Those are two, even though both are disgusting, but one, if you in America, the political left would like to make you think there's like some grand weekly meeting between white people to just figure out how we're going to destroy black people and other colors. They would like to make you think that, and that's just absurd. So this is just simply not the case. People are like, it's 2018, but if you think of groups like NAMBLA and other people who are into pedophilia, that actually is increasing. I've seen some videos on YouTube or people posted videos on YouTube defending pedophilia. So actually, slowly but surely, in like I think it's the DSM-5 or DSM-4, it's a book that psychologists and psychiatrists use to give diagnoses. They listed pedophilia as a normal sexual human behavior. So as you see racial relations, most people aren't walking around. Like I said, the political left will make you think it's like some grand conspiracy, going on, and that's just simply not the case. It is just ridiculous. And while simultaneously trying to convince you that the people who have the grand conspiracy against you are the ones who you need to help you in life. But I digress. That's what they do. It just leaves a person feeling like, so what do? I guess I'm screwed either way,
Oh, yeah.
But nevertheless, you see this happening. Now, from what I understand, they took that out, the DSM-5 or 4. They took it out after people complained. But the fact that it was even in there in the first place, to consider pedophilia a normal human sexual behavior, we are entering dangerous waters, which we will get into our rant later. So, you do have you do have a good point, like the Chick-fil-A thing you mentioned.
Yes.
Actually, Chick-fil-A's business is booming. They just opened another location not that long ago in Somerset, and it's always slamming.
Yeah.
And on top of it all, they always close on Sunday.
Which is hilarious and great.
And their business is doing wonderful.
Good for them, right? Now,
Yeah.
your comment about the white people getting together and have a meeting every single week, right? It reminded me of a comedian. He had this skit, right? He's a black comedian, and he put on whiteface, and he went about his daily life, right? And I think he walked into a convenience store or something, and it was just a normal convenience store. And then the last black man walked out of the store, and like they shut off the security cameras, and people started partying and pouring drinks and whatnot. And he goes to pay for some item, and what are you doing? You don't have to pay. Like, the black guy's gone now. You don't have to pay for things. You're white. You just take it. So we're gonna try and have a entertaining Facebook page in addition to an informative Facebook page. So we'll make sure and post this up later, because if you guys haven't seen it, I think it's Dave Chappelle, but it's hilarious, and I highly recommend everybody that wants to have this daily whites only meeting that supposedly exists. You got to go to the Facebook page. It's hilarious. We'll post it up after the show.
Like, remember the Clayton Bigsby skit?
No.
When he dressed up, oh my God, he was blind.
Yeah.
And he thought he was white. He dressed up in a Klan outfit.
Yes, he joined the Klan.
And it was a guy who was like doing a documentary about it. And he had his friend that would have him dress up in the robe and wear like white clothes.
And he didn't know, and nobody else knew because he constantly had the hood on. Oh, yes.
And then at the end of the skit, like, take off the hood. Take off the hood.
Didn't he marry a white woman too? And she, for some reason, kept the secret. Oh, that's just gold.
Dave Chappelle was a man before his time.
Yes.
He could laugh at our absurdities. Oh, my God.
Oh, definitely.
Any rate, we digress.
All right, moving on to the main topic for today. The main topic today that we want to talk about is immigration, both legal and illegal, including refugees and border security, how it impacts jobs and community resources, which is the whole topic in general. So there's a lot of reasons that we wanted to talk about this today, but one of the main reasons is our good friend over at the 14th Congressional District Republican Party, Janine Cadiff. She wrote a fantastic article in the Detroit Free Press, I think, a good op-ed on this, and you know this through and through, right? You read it?
So big shout out to Janine, our wonderful district chairwoman who wrote this wonderful article. Her article was so spot on. We're not just saying that because we love Janine, but it was gold just because of the facts that she had in there. You cannot deny these. So one of the things she started off discussing was that lifetime work permits for about 1 million immigrants every year are given. Think about that. 1 million lifetime work permits are given to immigrants every year. Now, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, 4.1% of Americans are out of work. Now, when calculating unemployment numbers, it's really complicated because sometimes when they count unemployment, they don't look at everybody who doesn't have a job. They look at people who should be working and aren't, or how many people are in the workforce and not working. It's not necessarily everybody who literally does not have a job. It's just what percent of people are not working who should be in the workforce, something like that.
I think it's everybody who's like not working but looking for work, and excludes the number of people that are not looking for work.
Yep, something like that. So right now there are 1.3 million Americans out of work. So think about that. If we're giving 1 million work permits to immigrants every year, and you have 1.3 million of Americans out of work. And the crazy part of the political left is like, oh, on the right, they just don't want America to be more brown. They're just racist. That's why they're xenophobic. And it's just like, no, the numbers are there. And the fact of the matter is, and I just really would, not just we would like Americans to think about it. Why that level of intellectual dishonesty in order to push your agenda? Because they have something else behind it, which I would talk about later when it comes to illegal immigrants and votes and all this kind of stuff, because they want to play on people's emotions. So if Mike says something I don't agree with and I call him all types of horrible names and just say Mike is a really bad human being, then that could make him feel like, well, just forget it. And it's the effort to make people submit and not question what they're doing. So back to her point about 1 million immigrants getting these work permits and 1.3 million Americans being out of work, obviously, since we're competing for jobs, that puts a strain on everything. And our objective, like what President Trump said, making America great again, it's about making sure Americans are working. Do we care about these people who are suffering in other countries? Of course. We feel sorry for these people. We have empathy, but guess what? Our primary objective is to take care of Americans first. So the Reforming American Immigration and for Strong Economy Act, a new bill under consideration, as she mentioned, I'm quoting her actually verbatim, would relieve these workers by reducing immigration. So, of course, if you have less people to compete with for a job, that means that increases the probability of you getting a job. I don't know. It's just...
It seems to make sense, doesn't it?
Mike, I'm convinced logic isn't for everybody.
It's not universal.
It really isn't for everybody. So at any rate, especially with Michigan being a blue-collar state, as she goes on to talk about in the article, because a lot of the immigrants coming in don't speak English, that means that they are basically competing for lower skilled jobs. Now, when we say low skilled job, this is not to diminish the work that anybody does. When we mean low skilled jobs, it's just jobs that a person didn't have to get any type of post-secondary training to get. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for example, my father retired from the plant. My mother never even worked outside the home, okay? And I had a nice childhood. Wasn't rich, just comfortable, enjoyed my life, did all kind of fun things, so I was happy. He never went to college. So, quote unquote, his job was considered a low skill job. It's not because my father didn't have any skills. It was because his job didn't require any post-secondary training. So those are jobs that a lot of the middle class and working class would be competing for, but they're not competing against immigrants. Now, number one, that's jobs, but also that impacts wages, because the title of her article was how immigration impacts wages. Scale back immigration to boost wages. That was the title of the article. So not only are you competing for jobs, but these employers know that many of these people are very desperate for work. So you can drop the wage. That's one way to make us, the employees, compete for jobs. There's a way when you have an employer's market versus an employee's market. When it's an employee's market, that means you have fewer employees and more available jobs. So that means that we can be more demanding, like shopping around. So if I know I could get a job at a couple of places, I can say, well, I want this. I want this and that. And unless you're willing to meet my demands, I'll go work for somebody else. Then the reverse is true when it's an employer's market, where I guess I could be using the wrong terminology, but that's just the way it works in my brain. But if it's an employer, then the employer can say, well, if you don't want to work for these wages, I'll get somebody else. So if you got a person who just came here, they don't speak English, they're desperate for work, and this is not to diminish these people. It's not against them. We just have to take care of our home first, I guess. And so then the employer can lower the wages, So, and also, so the system admits 50,000 immigrants a year via a randomized lottery system, as she mentioned, and it allows previous immigrants to sponsor hundreds and thousands of their relatives for green cards. Again, I'm quoting her for verbatim. So that's more people that are coming in. And also she goes on to say that only 1 in 15 legal immigrants receives a green card because of his job skills. So even like I was watching CNBC, which actually, I know President Trump can't stand MSNBC, but I will say CNBC is, when it comes, well, and they deal with financials, but I think they're fairly fair. At least that's just my estimation. But I remember one guy talking about that, like in Silicon Valley, how that's a huge problem. Like the H-1B visas, companies will do that. So they'll go to some place like India, for example, get one of these highly, highly skilled people. They pay them less money. offer less benefits. I remember seeing a special on 60 Minutes where people were like, I had to train my replacement because they would get somebody from another country on one of these H-1B visas, pay them significant less amount of money, provide them no benefits, and then you have to train your replacement. And if you don't, whatever compensation package you were supposed to get, you no longer get.
Which
or
is
severance
crazy.
package, I should say.
Yeah. And that's from a very reliable source, right? 60 Minutes, not only very entertaining, but very informative. Love that show.
Yep, and also it goes on to say, she talks about how 70% of immigrants 25 and older don't hold a bachelor's degree. So it shows that the education level is very low. And she went on to talk about how immigrants have accounted for about 40% of the employment growth in the United States, even though they only make up 17% of the labor force. So when Democrats try to say the Republicans just are against more immigrants, because me personally, illegal immigration must stop, halt, zero. But even legal immigration needs to be scaled back. So when you hear people on the political left say, oh, well, Republicans they just want to halt immigration because they're racist. And, again, the level, you should be insulted. You should be insulted by the level of intellectual, irrational dishonesty that they're spouting off. And then you must ask yourself, why are they not telling the truth? The numbers, the facts are there. We're not delusional. The numbers are there. So why are we so evil for wanting to protect American workers and want you to be able to better take care of your family and have a better job? So, and it goes on even with refugees. Again, it goes on the more people we bring in who don't speak the language, who are of lower skill. Now, if they were paying, like even with the H-1B visas, if they said, okay, fine, you can bring these people in, but you have to give them the same amount of money and the same benefits you would give an American, actually it would be no problem because it would just be competition.
Right.
So.
But that's not how it is, right?
Not at all.
And we're not saying that we can't have immigration in the United States because honestly, immigration's good and it can boost the economy. But if you want to take a look at all the people that want to come to the United States, millions and millions and millions of people, you can't let them all in. It would absolutely flood our economy. It would flood our labor force, and we simply can't support that, right? So we have to strike this really delicate balance between letting absolutely nobody in because, immigrants are awful. No, we're not saying that. And you can't also let in everybody that wants to come because it will destroy our economy. And so there's this fine line that we have to walk, and I think that the current administration is doing a good job in that, right? Maybe reducing the immigration numbers just a little bit so that more Americans can actually work and get the jobs that they're qualified for. Or, if they don't have any qualifications, like in the west side of the state where there's all sorts of berry picking, for example, then there are Americans that want those jobs. There are Americans that need jobs. And currently those job rates are underinflated because people are picking those berries for rates that Americans would not. And I see that a lot on the left of like, oh, Americans wouldn't even pick berries for the same rate that they're currently being picked for. That's exactly what we're saying, right? Is if you get rid of that drive for the illegal immigrants to be picking those berries, then yes, our berry prices will go up because the companies are forced to pay a higher wage for the people that are doing the manual labor, but those are Americans that you're putting into work. You should feel good about that. Yes, it sucks a little bit that you're going to have to pay an extra $1 for your bushel of berries, but it's worth it because somebody's feeding their kids.
Yep, and they're all about socialism, so it should be perfect.
Yeah.
They love to, they don't want to pay more. They just want to take more from other people. But also an interesting tidbit, Janine also had an article said, though the states, I'm quoting her again verbatim, although the state's GDP jumped almost 20% between 2007 and 2015, median household income dropped 7%. So it's so hilarious how Democrats will push policies that hurt the economy, then want to fix those problems by pushing more socialistic policies, which will further hurt the economy. I mean, it's asinine. That's the best way I can explain it. So sum it all up really quickly as the Raise Act that's being pushed right now. And they would like to, the bill would, just kind of sum it up, it would reduce the number of legal immigrants to about 500,000 per year. And again, as Mike said, we're not against immigration. That's not, as I mentioned before, in my neighborhood I grew up, I promise you, my block was like a G8 summit. Every bit of the word. I promise. Immigrants coming from the Philippines, from Vietnam, from West Africa, people coming from Iraq. So, so even from my own personal childhood, from I was little, I didn't even understand race. I was like, okay, like whatever. It's like a hairstyle to me as a little child. So I have absolutely no animus, if you will, towards anybody. The whole point, again, is just protecting the American worker. That's it. So, Mike, you had this article about a farmer went to jail
Yeah.
about this.
So I know I harp on this a lot, but I guess I'm from the west side of the state, and so I like to think of Michigan farmers a lot. Obviously, there's not a lot of farming going on in the 14th congressional district, simply because we're pretty urban. Reaching from all the way from Detroit to Pontiac. There's not a lot of farms in between that region. But anyways, getting on to the point. So Michigan Live posted this article saying that a farmer has been jailed for hiring undocumented workers, and in addition to that, got $187,000 fine. And it sounds like what was happening is that this farmer was repeatedly housing and employing illegal immigrants on his farm in order to perform manual labor. And the government found out about this and shut it down and jailed the farm owner and fined his wife. Each of them, I think, got a $187,000 fine, which is substantial, right? But I think it's important here for a couple reasons. And the most important is that you will never stop people coming into the United States if there are opportunities that they can take advantage of. And America always wants to be the shining city on the hill, right? That's a fantastic thing that people debate whether or not we've lost. The problem is that people come here because there are financial rewards and they can send money back home, and that's great, right? We want to keep those avenues open for people. We just want to do it legally. And so you'll never convince people to not come to the United States. The only way you'll do that is if there aren't opportunities here. So if we shut down the businesses that are employing illegal immigrants, and then the people who are currently here are saying, hey, there's no way that I can get a job, then people that want to come here to the United States will stop coming. And I personally think that that's going to be way more effective than any wall or anything that we build, is that you have to stop people in their minds of saying, coming to the United States is a good idea. You have to get rid of that idea so that people understand, okay, maybe I just need to apply to get into the United States, and that's the best way forward. And unfortunately, it seems like the government kind of made an example of this farmer in particular, but at the same time, it would be nice if the government would implement some sort of mandatory search on employees to say, if you hire this person, you have to guarantee that this person is either a United States citizen or here legally. Because I know there are a lot of businesses that, they knowingly hire people with fake Social Security cards so that they can hire them and kind of sweep it under the rug that they're illegal. And this actually lends itself really well to the next kind of account that we have, is that illegal immigration is a drain on the financial system. And a lot of people use the argument that, illegal immigrants pay into the tax pool, which they do. A lot of people, like the people I was just talking about that have fake Social Security cards, get taxes taken out of their wages and sent to the government. And then because they're typically lower paid workers, normally they would get those tax returns back, right? You see it about February every year that, oh, come get your tax returns here, and people are buying cars and stuff. It's because they get big tax returns as people in the lower income brackets. But these people, because they have fake Social Security cards and because they're here illegally and can't report their taxes, don't get those refunds back. And so that's the reason that a lot of people say, hey, illegal immigrants are actually contributing to the tax pool. But what we have here is a study by the Center for Immigration Studies, and we'll post this up on the Facebook page, that says, yes, that's all true, is that a lot of people have fake W-2s and a lot of people have fake Social Security cards, and they do contribute to the tax pool. Where it goes wrong is that immigrants are typically, again, of a lower income bracket, and they require typically a lot more social services than any other income bracket. And in addition to that, people in the lower income brackets, and especially immigrants, and especially people with lower education, tend to have high fertility rates. And so when you have more children, you typically take more money from the government for social services, right? And that's great. If you're a citizen, you're here, and you're paying your taxes, and you're trying to contribute, then fantastic. We will support you with whatever you need. But if you are here illegally and you are taking more than you're giving, that's not something that I can support. And that's why I think it's great that the government is starting to clamp down on businesses to say you cannot hire illegal immigrants. And once the immigrants understand that, then they'll either go home themselves because it's obviously cost prohibitive to ship people home, or they will stop coming altogether. And then at least it stops in one generation, whereas we've got this constant bleed on the system currently.
Yeah, and also what's interesting, you mentioned about the Social Securities. A friend of mine was telling me about that. That also leads to identity theft because those Social Security numbers, they've stolen another American Social Security number and is living under this person's Social Security number, doing jobs, all kind of stuff, and this person has no idea what's going on. So, I mean, the thing about it is the law of unintended consequences. And so, on the political left, and I try to use the term political left more than just liberal, because to me, in my opinion, I don't want to speak for Mike, but for me as Christina, I think the political left is the biggest threat to America, not liberals, because to me, liberals are kind of more like these kind of libertine type of people, kind of like, people should be able to do what they want. They're a little more free and open. That's what I think of more so when I think of liberal. The political left, like the authoritarian left, are the people I'm talking about. They are bad news, and they believe in open borders. Just to kind of piggyback on what Mike had mentioned, about 51% of immigrant-led households receive at least one kind of welfare benefit. So again, as we keep saying, and if you listen to what me and Mike are saying, none of it is, those people from here, we don't want them coming and messing up our country. Again, none of that. It's all numbers, statistics, facts. That's all we're just spitting facts. That's that's all we're doing. So with 51% of them on welfare, and a lot of times, like I saw this Facebook post about in New York, they're going to have free college in New York. And people are like, oh, that's so wonderful. It's like, are you guys children?
That's a terrible idea.
Are you guys children? It's like I'm living in the twilight. So I feel like, did you guys not, I don't know. Maybe we should add more logic classes. It's this quote from Albert Einstein. It's like, education is not teaching what to think. It's like teaching the mind how to think. It's something I'm screwing
paraphrasing.
it all up.
No, you're paraphrasing.
There we go.
That's
I'm
a technical term for it.
Thank you very much. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's true. Education should be teaching people how to think. I mean, how is it just, they're going for free? And I'm just like, I really got out of habit. I no longer argue with people on Facebook. Like, it's been like a few years. I'm so over that because some people are just like, whatever. When professors, which I do work at a college, when professors and administrators and support staff work for free, then it's a good idea. But since these people get paid very well, okay, everybody gets paid well. Working for a college, I don't care what you're doing. You're going to get a good income. So since it costs for these people to work, where does the money come from?
From the government, obvioly, Mr. Sanders.
Right. It's coming from the government, right?
Yeah.
And who pays the government?
Yeah.
My God. Like, this is like the cognitive abilities of people is just severely lacking. Moving right along. So they receive Medicaid, food stamps, school lunches, housing assistance compared to 30% of Native-led households. Let's say that one more time. 51% of immigrant-led households receive at least one type of welfare benefit compared to 30% of Native-born Americans. So when we say this is a drain on the economy, the numbers back us up, where the political left just uses emotion. And as we know, if you have any children, right? Take out them. They will show you that one anecdotal account of the guy who's been here for 25 years. The one, again, as we mentioned last episode, you do not make policy based on anecdotal accounts. You make policies on what's good for the general public, and then you let the judges deal with anecdotal accounts. I feel like I'm getting hot. I'm sweating. I'm getting so upset because it just makes absolutely no sense. So obviously, if 51% of them are on some type of government assistance, then it's obviously a strain on the economy. And President Trump, I mean, again, a lot of times the media will try to get you caught up. And me and Mike laugh at like the fake news stuff and the sneaky Dianne Feinstein. It's comical, but in all, his policies have a good point. Like he mentioned about, are we having a merit-based immigration? You can't get welfare benefits for after 5 years. Why should you come here? And then, the way I look at it, as us Americans, like we fought and died and bled for this country. And then here you come. Now I'm here. I'm having babies. I'm getting government assistance, free food, free house, free this. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like native-born people should always get first dibs on the resources because, I mean, that's only fair. You know, that's the way I feel about that. But nevertheless, it's costing a lot. And those numbers increase for households with children, with 76% of immigrant-led households receiving welfare compared to 52% of native-born. So again, it's definitely it's costing us a lot of money. And it's the reason why, you know, I feel like a lot of times people on the left, they don't understand how money works. They really like the term, or your parents would say to you, like, what do you think money grows on trees? Like, they really think money grows on trees. And the funny part about folks like Bernie Sanders, he got rich telling other people that rich people are bad. Like, this guy is rich himself. It is just so ridiculous. In addition to the fact with illegal immigration, that brings a whole new set of issues. That brings in crime. And a lot of people don't like to admit that. So, you know, they'll show on the news like, oh, well, you know, the Hispanic community. Okay, let's think logically here for just 1 minute. Of course, most of the immigrants coming to America are going to be from Central America. Why do you think, Mike? Why are most of the immigrants coming here going to be from Central America? Because that's our closest land neighbor. Just pointing that out.
No way.
That's our closest land neighbor.
Well, it's the same thing as Europe, right? Why are all the Europeans being flooded with people from Syria and people from Turkey and people from... Because that's close to them, right? Like, of course, they're not getting South American immigrants in Europe because you can't get there.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Like, people are not coming from Canada because Canada is not a poverty-stricken country. Like, I had a student of mine whose family was from Indonesia, but she's actually ethnically Chinese because if you know anything a little bit about history, like, you know, had the Japanese occupation in China. So at that, and that, of course, that must have been like 1910s, 20s. I can't remember when. I'm sorry, guys, my history brain is off elsewhere. Exactly when the Japanese occupied China, but nevertheless, her family left. Where's the close neighbor? Indonesia. That's their close neighbor.
It was the 20s and 30s, wasn't it? The like rape of Nanjing.
Yeah. So again, of course they're going to go there. So I say all that to say, of course, that's where most of the immigrants coming in. It doesn't matter where they're from. It's just a financial constraint on us. So nevertheless, moving right along, you do have an increased gang violence because when people are here illegally and they can't find legitimate work, they're going to go to the black market to make their money. I mean, that's just kind of common sense because people are not going to starve and die. So really quick, some interesting things Mike had up about how much money it's costing the state of California to have illegal immigrants. Now, this is the funny part about California. All these people out in California, really quick, remember after the tax reform was passed, how they were upset that they were going to have to pay more taxes? Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Aren't you guys socialists? Don't you want to take care of everybody? So why are you upset that you have to pay more? So we're evil and horrible for not wanting to have to pay more. But for them, it's different. Right. Because it's a celebrity and I like her song. It's just so stupid. It's so annoying. But it cost them, illegal immigration cost them about $3 billion a year. $3 billion. I mean, it is
just one state.
Just California, and they want more of our money. No, thank you. I'm with President Trump. You want to be a sanctuary state? You foot the bill. You're not going to take money from me here in Michigan so you can be Mr. Biggs out in California, and then you still live a cushy life while middle class people are suffering. So
you're just salty that they're warm. It's 70 degrees and sunny over there, and
I am. So really quick, Mike, yeah. We're wrapping up, guys, because it's so much more we can say. We need more than an hour.
We're going to start doing 4-hour shows.
Oh, yeah, just sitting there chilling. Okay, really quick, we got like 2 minutes left. We changed the name of the segment to Things That Ruffled My Feathers. So
what do you got?
Okay, so what really upset me, I'm going to try to be so concise, which is so hard for me. But at any rate, so it was this big story that circulated on social media about this R&B singer named Genuine. Long story short, he was on a Big Brother program out in the UK. One of the other contestants, who was a transgender individual, asked if he would date a transgender. And he's like, well, he's still a woman. Oh, my God. Please, people on the left, if you're born with male genitalia, you are a male. And the problem that came from it was that the person tried to kiss Genuine. He was like, no. He wasn't rude. He wasn't disrespectful. He was like, no, I'm not interested. Then the internet was just flooded with people who are so. Now, let me keep this in perspective. I understand the internet, you have access to everybody's opinion. So somebody's always going to be mad. So that's not a good point. But the point I'm making is that a lot of the people who are like, how could they? A person has a personal preference to date who they want. Absolutely. But a lot of the people saying this were the same people acting like a man who cuts off his penis and get fake breasts is a woman. Being a woman is not playing dress up. Being a woman is so much more than growing your hair out, putting on makeup, and wearing a dress. So the thing people need to understand is the law of unintended consequences. So when we have a society and you're going around saying that men who grow out their hair and wear fake breasts are women, then logically, if you're going to follow through on the logic, why should he not want it? It's a woman. And so it's going to have negative just like with the illegal immigration. In theory, yeah, I mean, you want to open your door to help everybody, but the reality of it has the law of unintended consequences. So this, which I would like to explore later, this whole issue, this is going to bring so many more problems to our society when we start saying there's an unlimited amount of genders. I mean, it's really quick. I was telling you about earlier the book that I had, the American Renegade book. That book has some really interesting points about moral collapse and how it affects society and absolute freedom and all kind of stuff, which I'll stop there. But Mike, I will stop and let you have the closing comments and thoughts.
No, that's. I mean, we could talk more about this for an entire show episode by itself, right? But that's it. We're out of time for this week. So all I have to say is welcome to Right on 14th and come like us on all of our social media pages. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We've got a Gmail account. Everywhere, the branding is Right on 14th. Come like us, come comment, tell us what you want to see, what you don't want to see, and we really appreciate your comments. Thanks, everybody, and
goodbye.
Nice job. That was great. Yeah. Or we dance because we're still in camera, but we're not on.